What does Sounds Good podcast really mean?
Music that makes you move?
Or stories that make you feel?
Or ideas that only sound good on paper until we challenge them?
I am Abhishek,
And I'm Hana.
and this is
Sounds
Sounds Good.
good.
Calls that many dread to attend, and many feel get bored of. But at times, we also have calls that gives value to the entire organization. So, what's your experience, Hana, with corporate calls?
Gymnastic. I've never jumped in my life as much as I jumped in and jumped out from corporate call. And I always hear this sentence: let me jump in, I have to drop out. Let me jump in, I have to drop out. It became almost a motto of most of the calls. And now I realize in corporate calls is that there are always just few people that speak, and most of them are sleeping without a video on mute. Have you also experienced the same, Abhishek?
Yeah, I mean, not only jumping in and out, but I also heard, sorry, I was on mute. S- Uh, the other one of my favorite one was the moment you ask questions, because many a times when you say that people sleep, I ask questions and then people say, sorry, I was distracted. Can you repeat?
Wait, my favorite, Abhishek. This is my absolute favorite sentence. Let's take this offline. And I'm always wondering when I hear this in a call, I'm always wondering, are people really catching up offline and fixing the issue, or it's just a way to drift away from the question and just move on? And I believe it's the latest.
Yeah, it's also at the beginning, it might appear that they don't want to distract the entire audience with a smaller issue, but now it is a good strategy to divert and ignore the topic altogether.
That's true. And you know what? It made me realize, Abhishek, especially after COVID, we started having more and more corporate calls. And I am a big believer that half of those calls are useless. We are talking, we're just feeling that we are meeting and it feels good, sounds good on paper, but we are not solving any problem. We are not moving forward and we are not having results and outcome driven calls in half of them. And this is the big issue now that we talk to talk. And some of those corporate calls could easily be replaced just by two people chatting for 5 minutes instead of inviting the entire organization or 20 people with just two, three active members and the others listening and even ending up sleeping.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But the other way of looking at it is if I just have a call, say, with you, and I don't invite other team members, many of them feel ignored. And many of them might say that why they were not invited or why their opinion was not even heard of. Let's also understand that if we don't have enough people, many a times people also feel that they are less powered. So, for example, if you have a two-person meeting with a senior member, then that person might feel that he doesn't hold enough power. Vis-a-vis 50 people on the call for a senior management, even though 48 are not required actually shows that he or she got some power. That's
Totally.
human behavior.
I totally agree with you. It's power, and it's also some meetings also require to have the total organization or a lot of people, especially when you have a meeting to translate the new strategy or to translate the goal or to
Hmm.
celebrate results. The more people you have, the higher impact the meeting has, the higher meaning the meeting have, and people will carry with them the why and will realize that each one contribution matters. And this is exactly the type of meetings where we need senior leaders to be in the call, to give words, because they also give more power to that meeting.
Correct.
Now, Abhishek, let's talk a bit more, or let's get back to the funny part of things. And what happens when the tech is not working? You know, it happened to me for 2, 3 key meetings where you're well organized, you prepared everything, and then your Wi Fi is not stable on the moment where you have to share your slides and present. And then your voice is cutting, and then you are missing the point. Of course, it's super disappointing on that moment. But now, when I look back, it's super funny because we realize how dependent now we are from the internet or the electricity and all the technical tools.
That's correct. That's true. And have you also found some characters who just come to the meeting to ask questions?
Definitely. And to be honest, I have to confess today, I plead guilty, Abhishek, because I'm part of them. It's not just asking questions for a sake of asking questions, but I'm a person that jumps in quite often in meetings, either with comments, additions, or with questions. Sometimes I do it because I do have an important question, and sometimes I do it because I feel that the meeting organizer is almost crying for help. You know, when nobody asking question, when it's not interactive, I always feel the need to be the saver or try to break the ice with a question, with a comment, because some people will not dare be in the first one to speak.
So you don't need a strict fitness regime. You always burn your calories in a meeting by jumping all around.
I hope so. I think my calories are still there. I need to jump more outside of the call and go into the gym. But I do this quite often. But you know what I learned, Abhishek, is that sometimes also I take a full step back because my usual habit was to jump in quite soon in the meeting. And sometimes I try to take a step back, especially when my team members or other colleagues are in the call, to give them the space to also to show visibility, because in some of the calls, especially when you have senior leaders, it's a great an opportunity for our team members and our peer to be visible and to share their opinion. So I try to take a step back and give them the floor. Sometimes people don't take this opportunity, and this is the moment where I intervene to facilitate and to give the confidence to others to start speaking.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the role I play quite often in meetings, whether corporate calls or live meetings.
Mhm. Yeah. That's a very good uh, role that you play as a leader, and that's a great quality as well that you display by backing up the new team members.
What about you, Abhishek? Which role do you play most often, or what's your character in those corporate calls?
So, whenever I am hosting a meeting, I ensure that people are listening. So, if I ask questions like, anyone have any questions? And if nobody ask, then I will say, if no one has any questions, then I have questions. And then I can pick people and ask questions.
Which other characters you encountered that you found funny and that we maybe can recommend to our listeners either to be those characters or to avoid being those characters?
One special character that I really found annoying is people when they say that, sorry, I was distracted. Sorry, I got another chat window. The moment you ask them anything. And I felt that at that time they are not valuing my time or other people's time who are already in the call. And I would highly recommend our listeners to avoid being that character at least.
That's very good to know. That's very good to know. So we see that we can either take an active role in corporate roles and be in the host or the meeting organizers, and this requires some do's and don'ts, or be in the meeting participants, and there are some do's and don'ts. What would be your final word recommendations to both roles in corporate roles, Abhishek? To meeting host organizers and to meeting participants?
As a meeting host, I would recommend try to make your meeting as interesting as possible, irrespective of the boring topic, because your employees, your teammates lives in the world of Instagram shorts and reels, and they have a very limited attention span. So the moment you are not more interesting than a reel, they start looking at a reel or a short or a funny chat that is more interesting. Uh, and to the participant, I would say is avoid meetings which you are not required, so you don't get bored. And if you are required, try to be as attentive as possible.
Great takeaway, Abhishek. I will add on top of this, if you are a meeting host and organizer, first question you need to ask yourself, why do we need a meeting? Make sure that the meeting is necessarily needed, significant, and will drive outcomes. If you are a meeting participant, ask yourself, am I must have or nice to have? Prioritize. And when you are there, make sure you manage the mute and the unmute button, because what you will say or ask or comment might sound good.
Sounds Good podcast is on YouTube and Spotify
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify for more episodes.
because it
Sounds good.